There is irrefutable scientific evidence that climate change is real. Its effects are felt everywhere, and Canada is no exception. One of the key contributors to the rise in global temperatures is carbon dioxide, or CO2, greenhouse gas emissions that come from the burning of fossil fuels. How can damage to the environment be managed, and what role do governments play in the fight against global climate change? Should private citizens and corporations be trusted to clean up their ways? Or should they be taxed for their CO2 emissions? Our experiment plays political Cupid by taking two opposing politicians out of their comfort zone.
Ah, the good stuff.
But I'm not arguing against the concept of electric vehicles.
And forces them to listen to one another.
I think we'd all agree it would be a better world with less carbon in the air.
We're sending them on a series of platonic dates to solve the thorniest issues facing Canadians.
Well, this is a crucial question for Canada.
Who will seduce the other with logic or passion? And what surprises are in store? This is Political Blind Date.
I am the Member of Parliament for Lakeland, and I'm the Shadow Minister for Natural Resources for the official opposition. And I represent a big rural riding in northeast Alberta, where I grew up and where I continue to live with my husband on our farm just east of the town of Two Hills. Well, I guess I was always interested in politics and enjoyed social studies. At school, we always talked about current events and politics around the dinner table at home. My grandmother had been the first female mayor of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. My mom was a public school trustee. My dad was involved with volunteering with a local member of parliament. So it was easy for me to see how a person could get involved in politics and make an impact. And I think sometimes people don't get involved because they just aren't asked or they don't know how.
The Liberals' anti-energy agenda is obvious. Their carbon tax undermines Canada's competitiveness and makes everything more expensive for everyone. When will the Liberals finally champion Canadian energy, Canadian innovation, and Canadian jobs?
I'm Arthur Potts, and I'm the Member of Provincial Parliament for Beaches East York. Quite an accidental thing. The election was called 3 years ago. They didn't have a candidate. They asked me to run, and my first reaction was, I don't want to be an MPP. And I was told categorically, don't worry, you will not win, but we want you to wave the flag for the party. It's only 6 weeks. I said, you know what? I could do that. Let's do it. It'd be good for my business. And we worked hard, knocked on a lot of doors, and at the end of the day, I ended up winning by 481 votes, the smallest margin of victory of any Liberal in the House. And so that was a great thrill. And I woke up the next day and I said, man, am I ready for this? This new economy that we call the low-carbon economy is going to be 6-7 times bigger than the economy that brought smartphones into the world. It's huge, and we're going to need thousands and thousands of qualified people, great jobs, high-paying jobs in this new economy.
Experts indicate that worsening air pollution is causing more and more catastrophic climate change. But how can we reduce greenhouse gases? Many agree that fossil fuel users should be accountable for the damage, and it's time to put a price on pollution. The federal government in Ottawa is implementing a carbon tax that will set a price on carbon in provinces that do not implement their own system for reduction. The tax gives businesses and households an incentive to reduce pollution when doing so would cost less than paying the tax. But it's tricky. If the tax is too low, then polluters are likely to pay the tax and keep polluting. Too high, and you cripple businesses and families. That's why Ontario is implementing a system called cap and trade. The cap sets a maximum limit on provincial emissions and issues carbon permits to certain companies. The trade element allows companies that pollute more than their quota to purchase carbon permits from companies that produce less. Shannon and Arthur are spending the day together. Rare for rival politicians. Will they butt heads? Or might they find common ground?
I've heard of Shannon Stubbs. I haven't met her. I don't really know what she's done in the House and such. I'm looking forward to meeting for the first time.
Well, I've never met Arthur before, so I'm looking forward to it and hopefully have a friendly debate about some of the issues facing my constituents.
The time has come, I think, where Albertans will have no choice. The economics of oil is disappearing, and I'm hoping those people get jobs in the clean economy as opposed to a dirty economy.
The carbon tax debate can become polarized, and I hope right off the bat that we have a mutual understanding that both of our priorities are environmental stewardship and economic growth.
I don't know what her mindset really is. I'm looking forward to hearing it. I think all thoughtful Canadians, when they look at the evidence of what the price of energy is on renewables, will realize that you don't want to be putting poison in the air.
I just have to watch out that I don't get too aggressive or hostile and focus on being a good date, too. Here goes. Hopefully we'll get along.
I do have a little sense of apprehension or just excitement. I can just feel it. I'm excited, I guess. What a great spot. You must be Shannon. What a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for inviting me to Athabasca.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming.
Delighted to be here.
You know, I didn't have too many preconceived notions. I knew a little bit about his work.
Quite frankly, she wasn't anything like I thought she was going to be. Her pictures don't do her justice on their website. Young, pretty, dynamic woman and full of energy. I don't think I've ever been to Athabasca before, so this is really exciting. Now, my
Have you
riding,
been to Alberta before?
Actually, I worked out here on the oil rigs for a better part of 6 months.
Oh, you did?
I was only 18 at the time, but very grateful to the industry because it put me through a trip to Europe and my first year of university. So
Wow, good for you.
And are you married?
We got married when I was in the nomination campaign.
Nice.
And so my terrible last name, Stubbs, is actually my maiden name. And as you can imagine, as a short girl with that last name, I looked forward my whole life to taking on the name of like Smith or Jones. But meeting with the Reverend the week before the wedding, he said, how do you want me to introduce you guys? And I said, oh, Shannon Saskew. And then Shane looked at me and said, we have 4,500 lip pieces with the last name Stubbs on it. We could discuss this later. She was very warm, very receiving, and sat down, and we immediately started to engage in a conversation. I could see she was well prepared for it. I hope that my constituents will be able to express their views today about their worries of the economic consequences of the carbon tax. We all have to agree that putting poison in the air is a bad thing. You know, whether that poison's coal, fumes. I think it doesn't make moral or economic or environmental sense to make oil and gas development in Canada even more difficult when those are the very investors that are leading the way in developing renewable and alternative technologies. Unless you think it's only governments that should just take hundreds of millions of dollars, make everything more expensive for citizens, and pick winners and losers for
When we brought the carbon tax in at 4.3 cents, gasoline in Ontario was about 98 cents. So that took it to $1.02. Right now, after the hurricanes and such, where it spiked to 125, it's down in the $1.04, $1.03 level. It hasn't really been noticed.
Right, which means people aren't going to reduce their gasoline purchases, which means it's not going to do what you say it's supposed to do.
They're not reducing their gasoline purchases, but we're taking that money, we're investing it in social housing, energy retrofits. We're investing in First Nations, energy retrofits, new ways of producing, getting them off diesel, putting them into solar and batteries. We're using that money to help the cement industry and other major emitters reduce their carbon impact. So we're having very direct
There's probably expertise in Alberta that could assist
I'm
on
sure there is. I have a lot of
development.
respect for the great work that's been done in Alberta with oil. My issue is it's becoming redundant. because sustainable technologies are going to take over the needs.
It's not becoming redundant when the entire world is going to continue to demand oil and gas for the next half century.
Price of gas fluctuates far more than our carbon price will ever have an impact, and it's resulting in really meaningful reductions in CO2 in Ontario.
So what my constituents would say to that is you've proven their point that the carbon tax is a cash grab for government revenue generation to fund their pet projects.
That's been fun. I hear you've got some people that you want me to meet.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
He's very likable, and with his nice blue eyes and his big smile, but his policy positions are a threat to, the livelihoods of the people that I represent.
So, okay if I drive?
Yeah, you should drive.
I'll let you go over to the car. Oh, this is great. I'm looking forward to the trip, and
My constituents elected me to fight for them, so I allow the feisty part of myself to show.
It's funny, I don't use the word fight ever. Like, I think it's too aggressive. I always talk about I'm a strong advocate. And I advocate for this, that, because fighting, for me, it intones this violence, which I think we need to move away from, particularly in politics, as people get so cynical about politics and politicians. It's a very left-wing thing, I find, to do. They always talk about, we're fighting for justice, we're fighting for this.
Oh, we had a conversation at one part where I used the words fighting for my constituents, and that's what I think I was elected to do. And he said he thought that was a word that sort of had violent or aggressive connotations, and he didn't prefer to use that. And I thought maybe that's one of those instances in which there might be a difference between rural Alberta and downtown Toronto, because for sure my rural Alberta constituents want me to fight on their behalf.
Shannon's constituency is one of the largest in Canada. It takes more than 4.5 hours just to drive across it.
I don't think I've ever driven over a complete field like this. Well, maybe as a kid. I was in my souped-up Fairlane with speakers in the back and heading off on a different kind of blind date. Wasn't a
Like
political
an
blind date. An actual date, yeah.
Happy day!
wow, look at this country.
Yes!
This is incredible.
I'd just like you to meet my friends, the Olsen family.
Hi there.
Go on,
Arthur
Travis
Potts.
Olsen.
Hi, Travis.
Nice to meet you. This is Claire. Hi, Claire.
Travis, his wife and twin daughters live near Athabasca, Alberta, on a farm with more than 1,200 Black Angus cattle.
Travis was an excellent choice from his perspective of what she was trying to put down. He had his wife there and his two lovely children. He put a family face to it. So, your heart bleeds for that.
No, I bet your kids have named every one of these cows.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
But it was important for me to ensure the Olsens could talk to Arthur about the very real impacts on their family and on their business because of the carbon tax.
One of the big keys of our operation has been to extend the grazing season. So not only is it good for us economically, it's really good for the environment. The typical traditional part of agriculture was you would go into a crop like this, you'd bale it, and that involves a ton of tractors and fossil fuel and everything that we want to avoid doing. Right. I want to avoid doing it as a producer because it costs me money.
Here's a guy who's already done everything he can to reduce his use on fossil fuels. He free-range grazes his cattle, and they're there all winter long. So he's already reduced his carbon footprint dramatically.
The carbon tax at $50 a ton, it's going to cost our family over $100,000 a year.
Yeah, at $50 a ton. Probably surprised you don't know that in Ontario, we're premising our plan on $17 and not $50. And that's because cap and trade allows you to get more efficient carbon reductions with less money.
So, and I guess my biggest worry that I've got with it is...
But the reason you're doing the calculation at the $50 is because the federal Liberals are forcing a $50 a ton
and
carbon
that's what
tax
they
by
also
20.
said to Ontario, because you have a cap and trades, you're doing it differently, you're going to meet your objectives without having to go to $50. You're free to do so. So every other province outside of Quebec and Ontario, if they go that route, will be paying it at $50, but we're doing it at $17.
Right. But whether you're at $50 a ton or $17 a ton, my big concern is I'm not competing just within Alberta or just within Western Canada or just within Canada. We're competing on a North American marketplace. And when you tax me at a much higher rate for something like carbon. And my competitors across the US border that are producing the exact same product that we are, that don't pay a carbon tax.
Yet.
You're right, yeah, exactly. So if everybody paid a carbon tax, everybody in the world, then I would be game. And we have to be able to solve the world's problems, whether it's carbon or methane or non-renewable fossil fuel use. We have to do it together. But the problem is the losers are us. If I have a cement business or an oil business, I can pick up and move from Alberta to Texas if the taxes get too high. I can't move my ranch.
No, I appreciate that. We don't, nor do we want you to.
Yeah,
Right.
good point.
But so the point is, and I love the fact that you come to the fact that you're a businessman. If I could show you how to get all the energy you needed here at half the price you're paying for a liter of oil, wouldn't that be a good thing? Particularly that wasn't polluting the environment. So if you could get wind and solar with battery storage power here to run all your electrical stuff, and if you could take your surplus electricity and make hydrogen that you could fuel your tractor with, cheaper than buying fossil fuel, would you do it?
If there's an economic argument, I'll look at any of those options. You have to forgive me if I'm a little
But see, that technology is coming, and that's one of the roles I think government plays, is bringing that new technology and showing you how you can do better using less fossil fuel and using sustainable energies.
So there's these claims that the technology is coming, but in the meanwhile, you're going to cost the Olson family $150,000 a year.
No, and I appreciate that.
like-
There'll be disruption.
One thing you
That's
said,
like,
you said that
talking about governments picking it winners and losers. They're making losers of families like this.
we employ 9 people full time. This is our livelihoods. This is what we do. This is what we love to do. We've been here 106 years on this ranch, and we just want to make a living.
Either they give up a whole bunch of things in their lives to be able to make those costs, or having to consider shutting down their generational, family farm operation.
I've heard the message very, very clearly that we need to transition in a way that gets the best results from a carbon perspective while protecting people's lives and not making the transition too difficult.
So it was great meeting Travis. And at the end, he also said, listen, I appreciate you explaining it to me that way. I hadn't thought of it quite like that.
Because we love what you do.
Well, that's good.
Nice to meet
It's
you.
nice to meet you. Thanks. Okay, we have a surprise for you, though.
Uh-oh. I love
We have a
surprises.
surprise for you. Okay, you all right?
Am I going to ride one of these things? Because
No,
I might be able to.
And I thought we were on our way, but that's when he said, no, I've got another job for you.
So we got some calves back here, and they just need a vaccination, so we're going to vaccinate them.
Well, Trav is going to involve Arthur in vaccinating a calf, I think. And just to be fair to Arthur, I have not ever done that either myself.
Ah, this is fantastic. Ah, the good stuff.
So what you're going to do, this is a subcutaneous injection, so
Right.
you're going to grab the skin, you're going to pull it back, you're going to go in the base, and then you just give a little pull. Want to try it?
Sure.
It looked easy enough, so I grabbed the cow's hide, pulled it away, stuck in the needle, and just as I was about to stick the needle, the cow bucked a little bit. My hand slipped off, and I ended up pushing the needle right through my index finger on the left-hand side. And I got, 2 pricks to show it.
Perfect.
Well, one thing, I'm not going to get typhoid or whatever the cows get. Mad cow disease.
Yeah,
right?
we'll get that.
Although I know they would be reluctant to ever vote Liberal, I think at least I got some begrudgingly respect from both of them while I was out there.
When's the next election?
June.
If it doesn't work out, you come get a job here.
I'd be happy to.
That's good. Good for you.
Thank goodness it wasn't a worse outcome. So I thought he handled that like a champion, really.
Well, this has been a ton of fun. I've really enjoyed meeting you and coming out to Alberta. So I hope when we get back to Toronto, we'll be there next week. We'll see you next week, and I'll introduce you to some people doing some interesting work, and look forward to having those conversations.
Yeah, well, that sounds good. I look forward to seeing you in Toronto.
Give us a hug, warm up. You look freezing. It is cold out here, but there's no snow, so this is great. So let's head back and do it.
Now it's Arthur's turn back in Toronto, the home to all kinds of green economy initiatives supported by Ontario's cap and trade regime.
This is where you'll see the future of transportation.
And then, of course, we have the vehicles outside available for test drive. And so people can come to one place, test drive all the different makes and models of cars, sort of figure out which one might be for them, and then we refer them to a dealer that carries the car. The cap and trade money is paying for the rebates. The rebate has been extremely effective. This quarter, Ontario sold more EVs than Quebec, which is a first. In Ontario, there's about 15,000 EVs on the road. That counts 100% electric and plug-in hybrid, but out of the population, it's about 1%. It's a small percentage right now. It's really growing, though. It's doubling annually.
She said 1% of Ontario drivers have electric cars and hybrid vehicles. What will be the scale up required in the provision of electricity to, say, transition like all Ontario drivers?
Right now in Ontario, we're in a bit of a unique situation. Though some other provinces have this, we have a big surplus of electricity at night. EV drivers, mostly it's convenient to plug in at night. So there's a really good match between our grid and the cars. Based on the analysis that we've seen, we could accommodate about half of Ontarians driving EV before we have any real big need for new supply.
When the price is affordable, people will take it up. And so this helps make sure people know that, for instance, driving an electric car is affordable today.
Although she hates driving in the city, Shannon agrees to take an electric car for a spin.
Yeah, it's super quiet.
Speed bump. But you weren't speeding.
I wasn't speeding.
And it's zero emissions driving.
Yeah,
This is fantastic.
I like it. It would just be a matter of, being in a form of a vehicle that would be, usable and efficient for where I'm from, which is a very rural area.
The market will ultimately determine the adaptability of that technology and about whether or not people will purchase those vehicles.
What was it Clara was saying, that she saves $4,000 a year? And these cars will go at least 500,000 kilometers. So you could keep this car for 10 years. You're saving $4,000 a year. That's $40,000. It completely pays for itself in gas savings. Pull into the right.
Turning right, that's natural for me, Arthur.
I had you believing in the car every time you went left. You went left, you went left.
Maybe that would...
But now you're going right again. I've lost
And
her.
I'm signaling because I get him.
That is a smooth, quiet ride. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for visiting.
All right, pleasure.
Okay, you take care.
Take care.
You want to drive? You did so well.
Go ahead, Arthur, you drive.
I think it's just great and energizing and interesting to see all those advancements in technology and in innovation.
But I'm not
So
arguing
that
against the
technology's all
concept of electric vehicles. Like, I think the possibility is exciting and fascinating.
But
And
you're
I-
arguing
I
against putting
believe the private
a little tax
sector
on the...
will do that.
You're arguing against putting a little tax on top of the cost of fossil fuels, which will spur all the investments in new technologies that will make the transformation happen faster. That's all I'm talking about. It's strictly transitional catalyst approach.
Except that we know
The
from
carbon
the
tax
timeline,
isn't shutting down people's businesses.
But we know from the timeline of the place that you just took me to that they existed before the introduction of the carbon tax and before the introduction of the cap and trade system.
The same thing with hydrogen
So
cars.
so my point is they were already moving forward on that innovation, on that technology.
Not as fast as they are
so
now.
what if we took, well, right, because they're getting money, like,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. That's exactly it. Because we're incenting people using a
Right,
small
which
tax on
they're-
carbon to do the right thing and get out of carbon.
Sometimes there were a couple of heated exchanges, I guess, because for me, the policy positions that he's advancing, the end result is a risk to the livelihoods of the people that I represent.
Arthur introduces Shannon to a company that is developing a new kind of fuel that might be a clean replacement for fossil fuels.
This is our production plant here in Canada. Battery and fuel cell technology work together to deliver electrical energy for electric mobility.
Right.
Lots of people talk about batteries and battery electric vehicles, but there is another way to electrify transport which we think is better, and that's to use fuel cells. So batteries and fuel cell technology work together to deliver electrified transport. And the car can go just as far, or the bus or the truck can go just as far on hydrogen as it can on gasoline or diesel. So we're delivering the same user experience, but we're doing it in a clean way with hydrogen gas. And zero emissions. So the only emission from a hydrogen fuel cell is pure water vapor.
If you were to do this in Alberta, where energy is generated 85% carbon sources, does it have the same benefit?
Very unique situation in Alberta where you have a true energy market where the price is the price. And that actually also creates an opportunity for us to do energy storage and power to gas and deliver value, because when something's in surplus in Alberta, the price goes very low. When it's in high demand, the price goes very high. And in that real
the market
situation, we can still deliver value. So again, hydrogen is not a science project and it's not new. We've been doing this for almost 25 years now. And as a mature technology, we're ready to deliver value.
All these forms of energy generation and production are important, and the government shouldn't be trying to stop one or end one. It should be providing incentives so innovators and researchers and technology developers can do their work.
I'm not saying wholesale change. I'm not saying, you know, we turn off the tap on oil. What I'm saying is we need signals to say this is part of our future, and we need to shift the policy in that direction so that these new innovations get adopted and we learn how to use them, service them, build them, deploy them. There's lots of learning in these transitions and changes, and government is an important part of signaling that change. That only comes about from, you know, days like today when we have discussions with each other.
Well, this is a beautiful piece of technology, and appreciate you showing it to us.
You can't stick your proverbial head in the oil sands. You got to lift it up, see the changes that are coming, and embrace them. That's what we've done in Ontario. I don't mean disrespect to the hard men and working men and women in the oil industry, but times are really changing, and we need to transition from an oil-based economy to a sustainable energy economy, a low fossil fuel economy.
And so what I hope to at least have compelled Arthur on is that it's the diversity of energy production in Canada which is our strength, and that as politicians we should be championing all of the different economic opportunities and futures that are diverse across Canada in our different provinces and our different communities. Canada's greatest strength is our diversity right across the country, and that goes for our diverse energy generation in every community and every province too.
Exactly. So listen, this has been fun. I hope we'll get to see each other again when I get up to Ottawa, or if I get to Northern Alberta. Anytime you're in Toronto, do come see me.
That sounds good.
It was so much fun. Cheers, see you. Cheers. All right.
Okay, take care. Wait, which way are we going? I'm
Well,
gonna
I've
go
gotta go this
right,
way.
and you're gonna go left.
You can go left.
Thank you. I'm not going left. I've had a lot of fun with Arthur, and he's very likable and very engaging, and I think that we got along for the most part.
People have a very, very bad view of most politicians. So if this helps people see that politicians are real people and have a sense of humor and are honestly trying to do the best they can, not just for their constituents, but for the country and the province as a whole, I think that's a positive thing.